Welcome to PsychicBent. My name is Carrie.
And I'm Kim. We are two sisters wanting to help other psychics learn and grow in their abilities and to help educate about spirits, angels, and everything psychic.
Welcome back, PsychicBent listeners. We are excited to talk about this episode because we're going to do a little revisit of our very first episode. Kim, we didn't know very much about podcasts way back in the day with our first episode, did we?
No, we did not. And that one was just supposed to be our introduction into the actual podcast. And I think we kind of covered a little bit of everything instead of just really focusing on the haunted aspect of what we were going to be talking about.
Exactly. So we're just going to revisit what it's like living, existing in a haunted house, because we both have lived in multiple haunted houses, not just the one we grew up in. And from a psychic's perspective, I think that we're not as freaked out as much because we're already communicating with things we don't see, being our spirit guides and, spirit. That's just my perspective. What do you think, Kim?
Well, I think that, yes, now that I've been developing and recognizing things, I think that the haunted part of it doesn't scare me like it did. But I have to say that I have been pretty spooked out at the different places I've lived in. But then that was before recognizing it and acknowledging the development of the abilities that I have. So,
yes, it's different now than even 5 years ago encountering an entity, correct? I mean, because we're always growing and developing. And that's been what we've really pushed for, is to really focus on our spiritual growth and our psychic abilities. And I think with that, we gain knowledge that some things aren't as scary as they used to be.
yeah, I would agree with that, except I would like to add that I've had encounters with different things now that I've been developing abilities that I didn't know were out there. Does that make sense?
And it's important that you recognize, you're recognizing, because we've talked about different entities, different types. You and I both have encountered an elemental.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which at the time when you don't know what it is can be quite unnerving and quite scary. And even when you do know what an elemental is, it still can be a little unnerving.
Yes.
And there's still creepy things out there. I just think in the perspective of living in your home, from a psychic perspective, you're a little more comfortable because you're a little more comfortable setting boundaries.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. When I'm in my bedroom and I'm sleeping, it's a no touch zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're closed for business. No communicating.
I think I had been more comfortable setting boundaries for other people, like setting a boundary where something couldn't bother Katrina, than I was at
Yes.
setting boundaries for myself.
Right. I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, funny story. So, the other morning, I'm getting ready for work, and my boyfriend's taking a shower, and I hear "Hey" in a male's voice, and there's a sliding door off the bedroom, and there's a deck, and I'm like, so I opened the door because I thought it sounded like him, and he's in the shower, and I stood there for a minute, I'm like, okay, better not be somebody out on that deck, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I start to get ready again, and I hear "Hey" again. And I'm like, okay, this is not paranormal. This is a male's voice saying, "Hey." I mean, because you know the difference now. It's kind of like, okay, this is a man. And so, I go up and get my phone and I pull up the game camera that's out on the porch, and I'm like, I don't see anything out there, Oh no. And I went back in there, I hear "Hey" again, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So he comes out of the shower and says, "Someone's out on the deck. They keep saying 'Hey.'" He's like, "No, I was saying 'Babe.' I'm calling for you. I was out of my, shower gel, and I needed you to bring me some." He goes, "I even banged on the wall. Didn't you hear me?" I said, "Well, no, but I kept hearing 'Hey, hey,' and it was freaking me out." And he goes, "Well, you didn't think it was a ghost?" I said, "No, it wasn't a ghost. I knew that." I thought it was a man on the porch, but it was funny how it was, traveling to the wall. It was kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I went from being there's someone out on the deck. The man on the deck is saying hey to me too. Oh, never mind. But that's what the first thing he went was, didn't you think it was, a ghost? No, the ghost in this house don't talk like that. They talk differently. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That it's funny from someone who doesn't embrace psychic abilities of their own, that try to embrace and support your abilities. Like, well, maybe you were just hearing. He goes, well, you didn't think it was a ghost. It was me, but you didn't think it was a ghost. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. Well, it's not for me, but okay.
Yeah.
But so I just thought it was funny for a non-psychic person to like, well, it could have been this if it wasn't me. And I'm like, oh, no, it was. It could have been someone on the porch.
Well,
But,
it also just shows that sometimes maybe a little investigation is required to know that,
yes.
wait a minute, this isn't a living person trying to communicate with me. This is something else. Or, oh, wait a minute, that's not
Yes.
spirit talking to me or whatever. That's my guy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And, because I was something like, and I was about ready to ask Spirit, okay, is there someone out there? And if there is, you could begin to make them go away. And, then, yeah, it wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary.
Oh, that's
But
funny.
I think using like your divining tools to, as you're growing to, because you could use them we talked about last episode, you can use your divining tools to communicate with ghosts and spirits.
Yes.
If you're not, afraid or concerned, if you're afraid, don't mess with it. But if you are wanting to get affirmation, okay, I'm hearing this, your dowsing rod or your pendulum, and just say, okay, I need you to move this, and it's like a way of debunking. Are you really here? If you are, I need you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I think I heard you, but just to make sure it wasn't something outside, can you move my pendulum?
Right.
Or I've got this rod here, can you move that? Or, I'm not too big on, you've seen on the ghost hunting shows where they have the flashlights that they unscrew.
Yeah, I don't do those, no, at all.
Yeah, well, because you've got it so loose that it doesn't take much to make it connect, that I'm not sure if a dump truck driving past my house is going to make it turn on or off,
Yeah,
just from the vibration making it connect.
right.
So yeah, and I'm not knocking those that's what they use for when they do paranormal investigations. To me, I think that's a little harder to debunk unless you've got some really consistent activity that's matching what you're asking.
If you're recording along with and you're getting a response that you can hear on the recording too that matches up with that,
Yeah, it
maybe.
validates it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I've seen where they have three flashlights, and one's yes, one's no, and I forgot what the middle one was for.
I think it was a control.
Control. Yeah, so I can see if you've got that lined up, and you're asking yes and no questions, and they're taking turns answering. Like, you ask a question, you're going to get yes. You ask a question, you're going to get no.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that has more validity than just one flashlight.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But growing up, we didn't have those techniques. We didn't know
No,
about those techniques.
no.
I mean, we didn't start to see those kind of techniques until what, the late 80s?
Oh, I guess,
I mean, of course, my first exposure was Ghost Hunters.
right. Mine too.
Yeah, and then later on, other shows, and some shows like this is a little too hokey for me, because I like the debunking that idea when you're going into a house that you're not familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
and even when it's your own house, when you first move in, you have to debunk, okay, what is going on here?
Yeah, is this house just settling or not?
Right. And I find that as a psychic moving into a new location, it's like you're the novelty all of a sudden. Everybody wants to make themselves known to you, entity wise
Mm-hmm.
or spirit wise in the house. And that the longer you're there, the more the novelty is wore off, and they don't communicate as anxiously as before. They still communicate, but not as often.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of that could be they come and go. Those that have transitioned, they come and go. But I think the new has wore off the toy, so to speak.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, because I'm not going to talk to you when I'm trying to sleep. It's kind of like, oh wait, she's got rules. So every time I move into a new location, and I've done a lot more moving than Kim has,
Yes.
just because of jobs moving me around the country to
Right.
different places.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've had places that I moved in that I've been left alone, and I've had places I moved in where I was harassed,
Right.
which I think that the one place that I lived that I was harassed was in Asheville, North Carolina, and that's where I honed my smudging skills and taking control and learning how to cleanse a place and what you have to do to get somebody out.
Was that the one where you had boxes in a back bedroom or something like that? And that's where that person was, or that entity was hanging out?
Yes, yes, yes. It was an apartment on the top floor. I had one day my hands were loaded with groceries and I was coming up the stairs and they were outdoor concrete steps. Like the layer, the top, the what you stepped on was concrete, but it was metal in between and open, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Right.
And I remember getting pushed and landing, and it cut my dress pants, it cut my leg. I I had a glass bottle in the bag that shattered. I had a guy come running up the stairs because I made quite the ruckus because I hit hard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I do believe that that entity was behind that. That was before I really knew he was there because it was like I'd gone up and down the stairs how many times. The landlord called and said the neighbor below was complaining that you're keeping his daughter up at night. What are you doing at 2 o'clock in the morning? And I'm like, sleeping. I'm sleeping at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still at the early stages of my development. And I was just kind of like, the only time I'm up is I have to do inventory at the store. And yeah, is her bedroom, where's her bedroom? Is it below the banister? And like, no, it's in the spare bedroom. But, it's the second bedroom. I'm like, there's just boxes in that room. There's nobody in that room.
Mm-hmm.
Then sitting at, I had a curio cabinet that had a mirror and I'm watching TV, had the lights off, and I saw the gray figure of a man leave that bedroom and head into the bathroom. And I was like, oh, great. Fine. But he showed himself and he did it on purpose. And it was really kind of, and I think I've talked about this before. I mean, he needed to go.
Right.
He was causing problems. He was causing problems for me because the landlord was calling because I'm keeping a child up at night. And now you're messing with a child now. That's not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'd been living there for a while, never saw him. So he was probably traveling around the apartment complex.
Right.
And, so I wasn't happy that, a child was getting disturbed by this. So I talked to Julie, our oldest sister, and I'm kind of like, okay, this is what's going on. This is what I saw. And she's like, so she's like, try this, try this, try this. I'm like, okay, So I do all this, and the first time I was smudging, I kid you not, he leaned across my shoulder, looked down at he came around my shoulder, looked down at my sage, looked up at me,
Oh, gosh.
and then backed off. And I was just kind of like, and he's gray. He was gray. I mean, full body gray man.
Wow.
It was almost like, all right, little girl, kind of thing. That's how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, we'll see how well this works, kind of thing. So I smudged and I salted. I had the doors open and I put well, he showed up again, but this time he wasn't as dark gray as he was. He was lighter.
Hmm.
So I did more research online and I checked out some different practices. And so this time I was a little more, you're getting the blank out of here and you're not bothering anybody. You're leaving. And when I smudged that time, he got lighter. And that's the only time I've ever seen this happen with me. But like I said, I was I didn't have the holy water back then. I didn't have, the Palo Santo and the different kinds of cleansing. I didn't have black salt. I didn't have, shoot, I didn't even have sea salt. I had iodized salt in the cabinet, and that's what I was using for salting, because of what I had. I'm like, where do I get this other stuff at? I did some research, and it took 3 cleansings for him to leave. And I got a hold of sea salt, and I salted the steps outside the apartment. I salted the corners of each room, the windowsill, the doorways. If I vacuumed, I resalted in sage, and I didn't have any problems after that, and no more calls for the landlord.
Well, that's good.
He was not wanting to leave.
Well,
but
you were invading his space.
yes, and he was hiding, and he was being mischievous. He was not. I think his intent was to scare me, intimidate me, cause problems. And not all entities are that way, but there are bad entities out there.
Right.
And he was one of them.
Yep.
But when we were growing up, we just was rolling with the punches, so to speak. Like, okay, that nice lady dressed in a long dress in that rocking chair. She's just really, enjoying that rocking chair, and she comes and goes, and you see her here and there, and it's like, well, okay, all right. She's
yeah. During the day sightings, the day sightings like with her and stuff, and the man, I wasn't scared of those. I had enough frightening things happen in my bedroom, so anywhere else in the house except for that basement at the haunted funeral home, I was pretty comfortable with what was happening, except for those places.
Yes, I think you and Julie had more encounters in your bedrooms with something scary than I did.
Yeah.
Because the only thing scary that I encountered was the entity that was in the basement that almost chased you upstairs. You felt like you were actually being chased upstairs.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You felt like you were being chased.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. But I think you and Julie had more of you guys had the creepy hand thing going on.
Yes, but I've had that happen to me even before we moved to the house where we are now. I had it at the other house as well. So I've dealt with the hands coming out from underneath my bed for a long, long time. It doesn't get any easier.
Yeah, I do know I have a phobia about my feet have to be covered when I sleep.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe something happened and I repressed the memory, but I don't like my feet to be uncovered in bed. They have to be covered. I don't know why.
That could be that happened, and you were too young to recognize that it happened, because whenever we were at the house before the haunted house, or before the funeral home, that house, you and I shared a room. We shared a bed. We had to, because there was just the two of us, and you were little when we were there. You were real little when we first got there, and I had some of those hand incidences happen there too, and I didn't really consider that house haunted. You know what I mean? I didn't.
Right.
Not a lot of things happened there. Some did, but the hand thing happened even there. So you might have gotten touched, but you were too young to know that happened.
Understand what was happening.
Yeah. Right.
Because I know to this day, I'm real funny about my feet have to be covered. Because I don't want someone to touch them, meaning entity-wise.
Right.
So I think, but maybe that came from there.
Yeah. You probably were touched because they were trying to touch me.
Probably.
That is still one of my fears to this day. And I know it was just probably somebody trying to get my attention, or it could have been an attachment or something,
Or an ancestor.
Yeah. Well, some of the entities have very sick sense of humors, Follow this lady along all of her life and try and touch her from underneath the bed, It's not funny.
When you and Julie were discussing the same thing together, I'm like going, I don't like my feet uncovered, but I don't remember nothing going on like that. So I was going, But I was a lot younger in that house.
You were, yeah, because you were little when we moved there. because we went from the one house that I don't really remember except from pictures to that house. And so I was probably 4, maybe. You were little when we moved to that house. So you probably did have an experience and didn't know that's what it was.
Right. And wouldn't have been able to identify what it was.
Right. Yeah.
Even when we moved to the former funeral home, it was just kind of like the first time I saw the woman, I'm just like, oh, okay. It was just kind of like, I think I was in 5th grade when we moved to that house.
Right. Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, oh, all right. She was nice. I mean, she was nice. She smiled, and she just kind of was there. And then the guy, the tall guy, I always referred to him as the Abraham Lincoln guy.
Yeah.
Because he had the top hat and he had the dark suit.
Yeah.
And he only showed up in certain rooms for me. Never said anything. He never spoke to me. But he probably was trying to speak, but at that time, you don't know with your abilities what they were at that period.
Mm-hmm. And, Mom admitted that she would see him out of the corner of her eye, even though she didn't technically. She technically said she didn't believe in ghosts or stuff like that, but she did.
Yes. Well, Dad definitely did after his encounter with her.
Yeah.
And we referenced that in the very first episode, how she was standing in the window.
Yep.
And would not wave at him when he was backing up the driveway going to work. She was not going to wave.
Nope, just seeing him off. That was it.
Well, and I remember he was always, it's your imagination.
Yes.
There's no ghosts. And we're like, well, we've seen this lady. We've seen this man. It's like we all have seen them. I think she did that on purpose. I think she was showing herself to him.
Yeah.
To kind of like, the girls are telling you the truth here, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. They not be lying.
Yeah. Now, you have lived in multiple haunted houses. Is one thing it's funny is sometimes we move into a house and it's not haunted, but people bring entities into the home and then it becomes haunted. Wouldn't you agree? You've had that experience?
Yeah. Well, yeah, in this house. This house actually felt really good whenever we first moved into it. It felt so warm and welcoming when we got in. And then about 4 years later, things started happening. But then again, that's when the bonus kids started living here and started bringing things in. Things meaning items started showing up.
Right.
And with those items would come attachments or people just inquisitive as to why are you taking my stuff there?
Yeah. Or the haunted TV your husband brought home.
Yeah, well, yeah, we have to add that one in there too. He's just as guilty.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've probably brought things home as well. I mean, I don't want to just put the blame on those two. I'm sure things have followed me home and
Oh, I put the blame on him because that was the spare bedroom that he put that TV in. And where do I stay when I cut my spare bedroom?
Yeah, that one was definitely a bad thing to have.
Yeah, first night in, okay, the TV's haunted. What are you going to do about it?
Yep.
Because I'm not staying another night down there with that TV until we do something about it. And we did. We did stuff,
Well, and then the TV went bye-bye.
Yes. Yes, it did.
Yes, it did.
Well, I think it's harder to, and I've never tried to clear an object that had an attachment to it. I've done house cleansings and assisted in moving people onto where they needed to be.
Right.
I've never tried to, like that TV I said was haunted. I didn't touch it. Because I'm like, I don't know if I can clear it the same way as you would clear. And why is it attached to that TV? And now is this TV a vessel? I mean, I was doing left brain for Kim. It's just like, but what if this was a vessel? Because you're like, mirrors are a vessel.
Right.
It can be. Dolls could be a vessel.
Dolls.
Why couldn't a TV be a vessel?
Well, sure.
So to me, it's like, yeah, nope, not touching it. He that brought it into the house may remove it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Now, I have found that with a lot of the things that come into the house here, a lot of the items that come in. I have addressed it with, like the lady that was sitting on the bottom of the stairs and was watching me. Her object was in the living room because it hadn't been moved upstairs or somewhere else. And she was just watching me and her object. With her, I told her, oh, okay, hi.
Hello, when did you get here? Well, you're new.
Yeah, I see you're here. Are you here for this? I just felt that that's what she was there for. And I just simply said, we'll take care of this. We'll make certain nothing happens to it. If it's okay, it's okay for you to go on, move on. We'll make certain that this is treasured as you treasured it. And I never saw her again, never felt her here again. She
Yeah.
just left. So I found that sometimes that's just what I do, and it is
A
just
simple
explain them
fix.
that it'll be taken care of, and
Yeah.
they move on.
Yeah, if it's something that's not a vessel
Mm-hmm.
or could be used as a vessel, that's a great way to handle it, Kim.
Yeah,
Have the conversation, just let her know. You can move on. You don't have to stay here. You can move on, go be where you need to be.
right.
Yeah, now the haunted house that I lived in with my ex-husband, he brought things home all the time. He even brought a haunted truck home. He wanted a work truck. He pulled in the driveway and I took one look at it and my stomach did the big flip flop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh no, you did not. like, but his vibration was low. And so he was, I think, naturally attracted to low vibrational items and not realizing that's what it was.
Yeah.
Everything he tried to fix on this vehicle went wrong. I mean, and I'm just like, I'm like, you gotta get rid of that. And that's definitely not coming into the garage at all. I'm like, you need to get rid of that. It's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I smudged it. So it's like, I had a line of salt at the garage, where the doors were,
Yeah.
because he would bring things inside with him. And he would see it. He kept seeing this guy with a trench coat. I had to put a protection around the house. And so he would only see him in the driveway or in the yard.
Yeah.
I never saw it. But when I moved out, because obviously he's the ex-husband now, I moved out, he was having all sorts of activity in the house.
Mm-hmm.
He even covered up a mirror in the spare bedroom closet because he said he saw something go in there. And I'm like, well, I'm not there anymore to cleanse the house. And I'm like, you're bringing strays in all the time. You know what? I can't help you, but you may want to find a psychic who can. I just can't help you anymore.
Yeah. Well.
But I think it was because he was attracting lower vibrational things because, he was drawn to that and that was attracting him. And I think some people just can, without their knowledge, like your bonus daughter, collect things, drawn to things that have attachments. There's some sort of comfort there.
Right.
That maybe they don't understand why.
Right. They just relate to that item, therefore relate to that entity.
Or that vibration.
Whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
And not realize what's really going on.
Right. And sometimes these things, these objects, come in from the vehicle in the middle of the night. And I wake up in the morning and go, oh no. You can just feel it,
She's brought something in again, hasn't she? Yeah.
Yeah. It is a different feeling when you go from a house that is not haunted to now there's entities coming and going. There's a big difference to when you first walk into a house that is haunted, that you really feel it. Because I think you can always tell when you're wide open. You can usually tell when you walk somewhere and there's something there.
Yeah, when I do a house blessing or cleansing, I do a walkthrough. And I've gone to a relative's house before and said, okay, who's the guy from California in your basement currently hiding in the shower? And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'd like him to get out of the shower because I'd like to take a shower. It's like, he needs to go. It's funny how that, when you walk through, whereas your husband does not have the senses to see or feel anybody that's there spirit wise. And that's okay. Not everybody's open to that. But whereas you can,
Mm-hmm.
when you've got two different energies, so to speak. So like when I walk in, like I walked into your house one day, coming in to do a craft show in Illinois, and I kept bringing stuff in. I said, "Oh, by the way, who's the man at the top of the stairs?"
Yeah.
And Kim's like, "Is a man at the top of the stairs?" I said, "Yeah." I ignored him as I came in. He just seemed like curious what was going on. But your husband's never seen anything like that.
No, he hasn't. But he's seen animals now, though.
Oh, he's gonna start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a ghost dog at one of the places I lived, and I had a cat. I felt that, the cat came to me, and, I'd had this cat for a long time, and he developed diabetes, and he moved with me. Every time I went to a new state, the cat went with me.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just like, okay, let's go. He'd ride in the car. And when he got ill, that was a pain I had never felt before in my heart,
Right. Yeah.
And I had to put him down finally. And I saw him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He would jump on the bed. And you know how that feels when you have an animal jump on the bed at night?
Yep.
And he'd jump on the bed. And I had another cat. I was just like, wait a minute. That cat's right here. I had one left, and I'm like, oh, that's not him.
Yeah.
And I'd see him. I'd see him all over the apartment that I lived in at the time, and I've seen him at Dad's house on occasion.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also buried there.
Right. He's started seeing our cats that have passed. He's now acknowledging that that's what he's seeing. Before it was just like, I thought I heard a cat meowing, kind of thing. But now he's starting to see them,
Yeah.
and he's acknowledging that he had a visit from whichever one.
Yeah, now that he's acknowledging that, saying what it is, what's going to happen next.
I know it's going to be more.
It's not just going to be animals.
Yep.
Especially when bonus daughter keeps bringing things home with her,
Yeah.
And she doesn't know. She's so ungrounded and doesn't recognize the ability aspect. And it's obviously not her time to learn that yet.
Yeah.
When I was ready to acknowledge it and I was ready to learn it, I was getting bam, 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 bam from spirit on different things would be set in front of me, or circumstances would show up like this, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, all right, well, I've never heard of that. Let me research that. Or, things would show up on my feed. It's like, well, that's weird. That's interesting. Spirit uses technology to communicate. And I think my interest in ghost hunters was a way of also preparing me to delve a little deeper into acknowledging psychic abilities.
Right.
We've met people that don't want it.
Yep. Want nothing to do with it at all.
Want to shut it down. It's like, I think it's easier to learn how to control it than to shut it down. But okay.
Yeah. But if they're that determined to not deal with, live with,
Yes.
experience the abilities, they just don't want anything to do with that, then that's what they need to do then for their mental well-being, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
Because some people are really not ready or don't want to deal with it, experience it. They just don't.
Yeah, and there's some techniques of, meditation that can trigger your third eye.
Mm-hmm.
And if your third eye opens suddenly, you're not necessarily prepared for what all's going on at that point.
Right.
Because the third eye is what's, your third eye, your crown, they pop open, and you weren't working, you didn't work towards it, but it just happened. And it is, I mean, I've read articles where like someone was arguing with her husband, and then all of a sudden, boom, she was like, I don't know what in the argument happened, but it triggered her abilities, and she was then wide open, and it freaked her out.
Yeah.
I think it's possible that they say that people that get struck by lightning that survive have tremendous psychic abilities.
Yeah.
I can see where that you're wide open now, because everything, all your blocks got burned off, I guess, or just the shock of it all just, popped your third eye and your crown chakra right open.
Well, it's a near-death experience, so therefore you're going
Yeah.
to things are changing, you know. And there is a chemical imbalance that takes, or a chemical change that takes place in your body when that happens. And I could see where that could open windows that were previously closed. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
could really start experiencing those, the abilities that you have.
Yeah, I think for me as a child, I was just so in my own little clairvoyant world,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
that I probably missed a lot of stuff that was paranormal that was actually happening. I'm just, it's just you're used to seeing things,
Mm.
but you don't have a name for it.
Right.
It's just what it is. I mean, it just happened, and I had a very, very big imagination. I just think that maybe my maturity level was not there to really identify what was going on.
Right. I mean, like I've said in other episodes, I can identify now what was happening back then. It's really interesting because now you can equate when this happened to you, when Grandpa walked out of the closet and he had already passed, he had already transitioned. I now know that that really was him coming to visit to say goodbye.
Yeah.
But back then, we're just like, no, Grandpa came out of the closet to say goodbye. Oh, no, you're just seeing, you dreamt that. That was the thing. But you could look back and say, nope, that's really what happened.
Yeah, that's what he did,
Yeah.
And he was really close to you and Julie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And by the time I came around, when I was real little, he had already was getting sick.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think that he had a bigger bond with you. Plus, you guys were older.
Mm-hmm.
So he definitely wanted to let you know.
Yep.
So, what else, Kim, about haunted houses that we've lived in or experiences?
Well, I know the house that Katrina grew up in, I knew that was haunted when we first bought the house because the lady had passed in the house. She and her husband hand built it and everything. So she was attached to it and it was okay. The bad stuff started happening a little while after we moved in. And a little while, like a year in, things started happening and we were writing it off as just things happen. But then they started getting scarier. By the time Katrina came around, that's when really bad things started happening. So the older daughter had already been living there, and maybe that's why things started progressing a little bit, getting more difficult. Maybe children shouldn't have been in that house
Right.
for long periods of time.
Yes.
The bonus kid would come and spend the weekends with us. Then it really started amping up, and then it also, I think she has things attached to her because they would come. It was probably relatives of hers, that had passed, maybe to protect her there.
Yeah.
But you could tell when it was different, when it was just haunted. It wasn't creepy haunted, where you knew at certain times, don't open that basement door because you're not going to like what you see. You're not going to be able to handle what you see down there. Which I always found interesting because it wasn't all the time that you felt like I shouldn't go into that basement. It was just when it happened, you knew it. And we had a crawl space in our bedroom that would go behind the bathroom, in the master bathroom. And that's where I used to keep the Christmas decorations and Halloween decorations, just things that you only bring out once a year kind of stuff. Maybe legal documents back, you know what I'm saying? Just tax documents or whatever. It was just a big cubby hole. And there were times, and it was kind of short, slanted with the roof. I would get in there, and the light was at the door. I had to crawl to the back to get to whatever I was doing, and that light would turn off. The most creepiest feeling that would come over me would just be awful. I've got to get out of here. And I knew there was something behind me. So I was facing that door where the light just turned off, and I knew something was behind me. You just felt it. You could almost feel the breath on your neck. And I would just say, nope, not going to get it today. And I'd just crawl right back out there as fast as I could and leave, close that door, latch it.
Gosh, that reminds me of the basement of the funeral home.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you were saying that, I'm like going, oh, I've had that feeling. Oh, I've had that feeling.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'd go downstairs. My husband's home office was there. And he'd come up to his office and sit down to work. And he's like, why'd you leave the cubbyhole light on? And I was like, I didn't. It was off when I left. But the light was turned back on. So those were Interesting times.
But and it's quite possible you could have also had a PK manifestation
Yeah, with all the
as well as a
yeah,
haunting.
so yeah, all the teen stuff happening. Oh, I'm sure there
Yes,
could have been
all the teens,
energy.
so you could have had a PK manifestation. If you're thinking, especially if you've got already an entity in the house, and then you have a teenager who has teenager emotions and a teenager issues. I could see where that could really be a perfect storm for that.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And me being ungrounded or closeted, but ungrounded and everything, I'm sure there was a lot of that crazy energy mixed up in there creating things. And I just know there were times whenever it was really, really creepy.
Hmm.
And of course, the peanut butter jar coming out of the cabinet at me, it shot out of the cabinet at me.
Yeah.
Who knows why? The plastic jugs of ketchup would come off the shelf and just hit the floor, and the whole bottom would shatter out of it.
Oh, that's a mess to clean up right there.
Well, it's a mess to clean up, and why would the bottom come out of it? You know what I mean? Shatter. But there were different things like that. And at first, we sort of wrote those off that oh, you just stacked them bad in the cabinet. That's what happened. Or pile of towels come falling on you when you open up the pantry in the bathroom. Oh, you just stacked them wrong. These are the thought processes you go through. And then until you realize, well, no, I had them stacked neatly. Why did they all come out? Could have just been a couple of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. When I got hit with the cinnamon container, I knew pretty much what was going in there.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't very nice. And I was making cinnamon rolls. I did need the cinnamon,
Yeah.
but it was not thrown at me though.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of how many places I've lived that were actually haunted. It's kind of like,
Well, I can officially say that every place that I've lived in has been haunted or has turned haunted. So, but that's not as many places as you've lived. So,
yeah. As ungrounded psychics or developing psychics or wide open psychics, and you're not understanding what's going on, you're going to draw a lot of things to you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I drew the not nice guy at the apartments in Asheville. I think I drew him to me.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that that is what happened. Mom and Dad and I, years ago, when I first moved to Asheville, we went over to Johnson City, Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
to visit cemetery where my ancestors, Mom's ancestors, your ancestors are buried. I had never gone. Dad had gone to this particular cemetery with Mom years ago, and I remember it was kind of funny. She was walking around looking for our great great grandfather, her great grandfather. And I'm just kind of like standing next to Dad, and I'm like, well, where will we go? And he's like, I don't know. I don't remember where it's at. And I said, why are there two graves here, Dad? And I'm pointing to this tombstone. I said, why are there two graves here? And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, there's two graves. Why are there two graves? And I was at the point where I was working pretty diligently on trying to figure things out psychically.
Mm-hmm.
I kept insisting, Dad, there are two graves there. Why are there two graves? And so to humor me, he walked up to the gravesite, and he's like, Marlene, Carrie just found your great grandfather. But it was just like I kept seeing two graves. I'm hearing two graves, two graves. Mom came back, and I said, why are there two graves there? And Dad's like, she keeps saying that. Like, she's finally off her rocker because it was important. I mean, it wouldn't let up. And Mom's like, well, they had a baby that died, and the baby is buried in the same grave spot as the grandpa, or as her father, which is the great grandpa.
Mm.
And I was just like, oh, okay. And then I was okay with it. It was like, but I couldn't let it go. It was like, but there's two graves. Why are there two graves? I mean, I had to know why were there two graves. And I think that was probably ancestors really pushing me. There was no headstone for the baby. There was only one grave. There was his ex-spouse. He was buried next to her. There was her tombstone, and there was his tombstone. There was nothing to mark the baby.
Ah.
So I think it was the baby needed to be acknowledged.
Right.
And Dad was looking like I'm crazy because I'm like, why are there two graves there? It's like, She keeps saying this. I don't know what's wrong with her. And then what was funny was they were buried right next to a huge persimmon tree.
Ah, memories.
Grandma loved persimmons.
Yes, she did.
And would take us to get persimmons when they were ripe off the ground.
Yep.
It was just kind of like a moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the cemetery, of course, was not haunted, but it was my ancestors were trying to communicate with me and let me know that there are two graves here, not one. There are two.
Oh, yeah.
So I know I went kind of away from the haunted house thing, but it was just kind of, I think, with our abilities, when our ancestors or a spirit has something really important to communicate, they can be sometimes pushy about it. Because I mean, I was just getting, all right, why are there two graves? I don't know. Why are there two graves? I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. There are two graves. Someone tell me why there are two graves. And Mom knew the story.
Yeah.
And I think they knew because it was her family.
Right.
And she had done all this genealogy research. I was a little freaked out by it, and I think I freaked everybody else in the car out by it. Once we got back in, nobody talked about it. It was like, no one brought it back up. And then we went to a storytelling thing, and I was being messed with the whole time. I mean, my shoulder kept getting brushed, and my arm kept getting brushed, and I was like, oh, gosh. Mom's like, are you okay? I said, there's something bothering me, Mom. And she actually looked around, and she's like, okay, well, tell it to leave you alone. And I'm like, leave me alone. It's like... And that was, I mean, so she would acknowledge things on occasion.
Yeah.
I think she was still getting over the why are the two graves.
Yeah. I remember that house that we were talking about. That's where I had my worst nightmares, terrifying nightmares. And they only came here once. I think I only had it once here. And then they stopped, probably because I started developing and putting up boundaries.
Right.
Ugh.
It was huge when I learned boundaries. It was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I learned early on in my development when things start happening is you cannot come home with me.
Yeah.
Because if we go visit a cemetery, all right, no one can come home with me. Or a haunted location or a battlefield. It was, okay, no one can come home with me, because you would feel them, you would see them, you knew they were there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just because no one comes to see them anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And for some reason, that's important to them, and they stay in the cemetery instead of going someplace else.
Yeah.
Or they didn't transition. And so that's the last place everybody went. So they stay there.
Right.
Waiting. It's real important that if you feel you're in a haunted location or a haunted house that you're visiting, you do need to put that boundary up that nothing can come home with me. I do that when I leave the paranormal convention. Y'all stay in here. No one's going home with me. I got the holy water. I will use it. But I also travel with Palo Santo and my smudge sprays, and, I think that helps.
I do that at funeral homes, at cemeteries. I also do that when we're traveling and I get a very sad, overwhelming feeling driving past a spot. Mm-hmm. And then I say, oh, no, you can't come with me. I'm sorry that you've passed, but you can't follow me. Because I think that with the tragic deaths that happen in accidents, vehicle accidents and stuff like that on the interstate, that sometimes they're lost. They don't realize that they've passed.
And I think they can also get stuck in the death state.
Right.
Because they don't know they're dead.
Right. Because it happens so fast.
Right.
But I find myself saying that when I get that feeling in my stomach, the feeling that you were talking about earlier, tell them, sorry, follow the light, but I always say, you can't follow me home. You can't come with me just because I feel that feeling. And I've now identified what that feeling is.
So, I didn't used to travel with smudge stuff. Mm-hmm. And then Julie's house would be haunted on occasion for things that would come home with her. Or an accident happened close by, and she had a construction worker actually wander in her garage. Oh. It's just being a psychic on the block, and they're going towards the energy and what they feel. And I started carrying smudge spray and things like that with me. Now, I had traveled to Gainesville, Georgia. Dad was going to have a procedure done. So I was going to spend the night at a hotel and then go the next morning for his procedure. And at the hotel I stayed at before, and I got the haunted room.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and I did not have my smudge spray because, like I said, this was a unprepared for procedure.
Right.
And yeah, so she used to work at the hotel. She was in housekeeping. She, she was Hispanic. She was very, very friendly. She was probably in her 30s. She wanted to talk, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, we're going to do this. Okay. Because, I was unprepared because I was in an emotional state.
Right.
So she showed up, and a little bit later, another man showed up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get some sleep to be at the hospital in the morning. And so that was my, I think, first known experience with dealing with a haunted hotel that I actually had to stay in.
Yeah. Wow.
So from then on, I smudge a room before I take, I go in, I smudge it. It's hard to prop a door open at a hotel room, but there's ways to make it happen because you need a door open or a window open to smudge. Most hotels, windows don't open.
Right.
I don't care if it goes into the hallway. I can go do whatever it was, but yeah. So I've been a firm smudger ever since then. Any time, hotel, someone's bedroom, house, whatever. I'm just mindful not to burn sage because we don't want to cause a fire
Right.
alarm to go off.
Yeah. Or the water system,
Yes, yes. We don't want the fire department to show up.
Right.
And plus, if I'm at someone's home, and how do you explain burning sage?
That's a tough one.
Because not everybody cares for the smell of burning sage
That's true.
or Palo Santo. Palo Santo's a nicer smell, but yeah, I had incense burning at Dad's house one time, and Julie and her husband were staying, and no, this was you. This is you and your husband were staying. I'm sorry, and I had the incense going, and your firefighter husband comes upstairs. You have smoke in your room that you're staying in. I'm like, yeah, I know. Okay, should I investigate it? No. Well, sometimes when you burn incense, it doesn't smoke as like it does other times. So I'll go down and check into it because if it's smoking like that, it's smoking like that for a reason. There's
Yeah.
something in the room.
Yeah.
Something's down there that's not supposed to be. So I'm just like, no, let me go check that. It's fine. You don't go in there. Let me go check it out. If I need you, I will call you. But I was just like, oh, I mean, I had open windows. I mean, it filled. Remember that?
Yeah,
The
the
entire
whole
room was
room.
filled. Yeah. It looked like it had a smoke machine going off in there.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. So that needed to be done, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, but that was a strange visit because we were sitting on the porch and a fox kept showing up and stopping and looking at us.
Yeah, really close to us too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she was pregnant and she'd come trucking in and go looking for food and just look at us like, oh, okay. Hey, just go do her thing, in the yard. And then she'd walk away and we'd be like, that was weird. We had activity going on.
Yeah.
That was different. There's a man in overalls that shows up on occasion at my dad's place. Usually doesn't come in the house. Usually it's outside.
Hmm.
I think he was a moonshiner because the guy down the street went to prison for moonshining. This was decades ago. And the Appalachian, that happens a lot. Still happens today. It happens a lot. But he wears coveralls and he's I wouldn't say suspicious, but he's curious. Like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think he's possibly a moonshiner. They found, jars back. There's an old mica mine back on the property, way back.
Mm-hmm.
Not our property, but past it.
Right.
And which is suspect of still could have been there at one point. But the guy down the road, yeah, he was a moonshiner. So he went to jail for that, for making moonshine. So, and that's, very common around here, moonshine and stuff. So I think that he's just probably an old timer that hangs around.
Yeah.
Whatever was in the house in my room needed cleansed that day because it really was it was smoking. And that's to me a sign that it needs to be, it's doing its job. It's taking care of business.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you feel that your house is haunted and you don't know where to turn, don't call me, because unless you live in my area, I can't help you. And Kim won't come do it. So if you live in her area, don't call her either.
Yeah.
But you do want someone who can come, who is a psychic and knows how to cleanse the house, to come help you. If if you really feel that you need to take care of a situation that you're living in. I had the one house that I had to go cleanse several times, and 3 different entities. One downstairs was not good. On that one, he got lighter in color, but nothing like the gray guy in the apartment.
Mm.
But the owner of the home's son practices in the occult and wanted to do the house cleansing, but wanted me there. I guess for spiritual backup. I don't know, because our practices are different.
Right.
I'm a light worker, and he had come up with the sigils to mark for the bad entity that was downstairs, and that it was really interesting because I know how I do it. I mentioned it before, where I came in with the holy water and the sage, and he kind of made fun of the holy water. But by the end of the thing, he was using the holy water because some things take a little more work to make them leave.
Yeah.
You had to really, something that's not invited to stay, you have to really kind of, some of these darker entities, you have to really push out. And it was interesting doing this with him because I do my thing. I do me. I mean, I let him go in first, and I said, well, you've prepared your sigil. He went on in, and he had moved the owner of the home that was still the one that transitioned. He moved her on because she wouldn't cross over. He moved her on. There was one in a closet, and he said he took care of that. And I'm like, okay. So we were taking care of the basement one together, and we had just been, and the room felt lighter. And after we got, he did the sigil and we did the holy water and everything, and it felt lighter. And I said, okay, well, we just got one problem. And he goes, what? And I said, well, there's a beige looking guy that just ducked into the basement over there. He's like, really? I said, yeah, he's beige. I said, but he was smoky. It's like beige smoke in the outline of a man.
Hmm.
He goes, okay, I'll go take care of that. And I said, well, you're going to have to, because you started this process. I'm here as backup.
Right.
I don't know if what I do would work with what he did. I don't know. I'm sure it would, but I don't know. I've never tried it. I was there to give him the psychic all clear.
Right. Yeah.
But you had someone that had lived in that house for a moment, meaning probably 6 months, that was really, it was not the son's practice. And what he was doing was a practice. It wasn't something he was just playing with. That was his practice. That was his belief. That was his religion. That's why I was respecting it. This is what you do, and you want to help your mother by clearing it. She, I think, wanted me there because I was the psychic and I was a friend, and she needed that. We both told her she couldn't be present.
Oh, she was an enabler.
Kind of. She really liked the older woman, and she would see the older woman, but she wanted the older woman to stay because she was taking care of her home for her until she decided to sell it, and the older woman got mad. The ghost got mad.
Yeah.
You can't just get rid of the 2 entities and not take care of the third one, because she needed to be with her family. They were waiting.
Mm-hmm.
She needed to go with her family. The other 2 were not related to the house, but there was a person that lived in the house briefly that had a peculiar fascination with the house. Really liked that it was haunted. Really, really liked that it was haunted. I kind of felt like he probably did something in the basement.
Probably.
Because when I walked through, it was in the basement, and it was in this particular room every time, and I knew it was there. And I let them know, okay, this thing in the basement, you're going to have to smudge this basement once a week, resalt it, and they didn't do it. So it was kind of he didn't want it to go.
Mm.
So therefore, it didn't have to go.
Right.
When you're dealing with a haunted house, you do need to keep in mind that if this is someone who's not transitioned, because maybe they didn't know they died, they don't want to go because they're afraid of what's going to happen if they move on,
Mm-hmm.
or they just are like, we talked about being attached to something. That was their happy place. They love that place so much, it's their happy place. But when they transition, they can come back and visit. They can go anywhere once they go to the light and do the whole transitioning process and do what you need to do. So it's very important that if you need your house cleansed, that you do your research. And there's several different methods. Like I just said, he had the method that he was drawn to. He had questions for me after we were done, like, what exactly is a light worker? And, so it was kind of like we were open to each other's way of doing things, because that's how it should be.
Yes.
Just because it's not my thing, you do your thing. You want to do it this way. This is your mother. Fine. I'm here to help you, but I got the holy water and we're going to need it. I mean, I was basically knew we needed it. Spirit told me to grab it. I took it in. I wasn't sure if it was going to be received, but we were being respectful of both different beliefs and both different life missions, so to speak.
Right. You had a sole purpose.
Yes.
You came together to complete that purpose. So
right.
That's fine. Great.
Yeah. And I was able to locate the smoky entity that was basically the one that had been hiding up at stairs in the closet. He thought he got, but he came downstairs and hid downstairs.
Ah.
He didn't quite go, which that happens. Sometimes it takes more.
Right. And that's why the maintenance is so important when someone says you need to do this procedure
right
every month or whatever. It's important to follow through on that.
Anytime you clean, you should smudge
mm-hmm.
or burn incense. Full moon, whatever. You can never over smudge unless you have asthma, then maybe, but and like I said, there's smudge spray. There's different ways of smudging, different kinds of product for smudging. Just do your research, and if you have a haunted house, you can help that.
Right.
You just got to know how to do it. Now, the house that we grew up, the old funeral home, the people that bought it wanted it to be haunted.
Yep.
I'm not sure they knew what they were getting into with that, because there's some things you can do that will really up the energy of the house, which is in a bad way.
Yes.
Like messing with a Ouija board.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't know how to close that portal. You don't know who you're really talking to. That's kind of why we've never really used that as a divining tool, because you don't really know.
Yeah.
They work, but you don't know who you're talking to.
Right.
Well, Kim, is there anything you'd like to add to this? Because I just started talking and just kind of left you out.
I contributed. No, I think that's all I've got for this episode. I'm glad we went back and revisited it, because I kind of felt like we didn't go more into details of the haunted funeral home and the different places we've lived. I think it was a good choice.
Yeah, well, we're going to revisit episodes from time to time where we feel like we really need to delve in, or Spirit's telling us, you need to give a little more info on this. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Psychic Bent.
I do too. I hope so. And let us know what you think about us changing the format. I sent out a little episode saying that we were going to be releasing episodes once every other week, and we talked about it on the last episode. Just let us know what you guys think about that.
Or anything. Any questions you have about haunted houses or smudging practices. We're always here to help and answer questions, or point you to one of the podcasts that can help you with questions that you have. And we have listeners that message us, and we usually message them back the same day.
Yep,
sometimes within like 5 minutes of getting the message. Depends on what's going on.
Right.
So thanks for listening, guys, and I'm going to say bye.
Bye. May your light shine bright. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, Psychic Bent. If you enjoyed Psychic Bent, please like, follow, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to Psychic Bent. We can be reached on Facebook at Psychic Bent Podcast. Our email address is psychicbent1@gmail.com. May your light shine bright.